This summer, during the biggest sporting event of the year, Peacock turns to two broadcasting legends for the Olympics coverage you can't find anywhere else.
I think they mean us.
With an incredible duo sure to take home the comedy gold. Olympic Highlights with Kevin Hart and Kenan Thompson. New episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Only on Peacock.
This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
Well, here we are, just hours removed from President Trump becoming the first person the second person in history, the first living person to accept the Republican nomination for president for a third time. Here we are for another edition of
The Other Side of Midnight proudly presents Ask Frank.
Ask Frank anything. Ask Frank anything.
Ask Frank anything.
Ask Frank anything.
Whatever you have questions about, I will do my best to tackle them within the hour. And all you have to do is give me a call at 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. If you have a question about something we've covered on the radio this week, now's the time. If you need advice on a certain subject, now is the time. If you want to know my opinion about something that's in the news or something that's not in the news, from baseball, Atlantic City, aliens, the criminal justice system, motion pictures, television, anything at all, now's the time to ask. Certainly anything about the radio business, I'll be happy to share with you. If you're curious as to my life journey or my experience, now's the time to ask. If you have any hypothetical questions that you'd like to try to have me answer, now is the time to ask. The only thing that we do is make sure you ask a question. That is it. Okay, give me a call, 646-720-0635. Whoever comes up with the best, the most interesting, the most creative question this hour, in the eyes of our illustrious staff of Matt Blaze, Elias, and Tony, will be gifted a prize from the Other Side of Midnight online store. All right, why don't we kick things off with Neil in Staten Island. Hello, Neil.
Hey, Frankie.
Hey.
I got a quick question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie Willis said that she keeps a lot of cash around because it's a black thing. Bob Menendez says he keeps a lot of cash around because it's a Cuban thing. Being of Italian descent, Frank, what do you keep a lot around?
You know, if I had cash, I would keep some around. I just, my wife and I just were doing some cleaning, and we came across a safe that I forgot that I had. And I was thinking to myself, well, why do I not use this safe for anything? And then I realized it's because I don't really have anything that I would put in it. But if I had to pick something that I have a lot of that I do keep around, and I don't think it's for an ethnic reason, it's bobbleheads. I keep a lot of presidential bobbleheads around. And, you know, if I ever get accused of corruption or taking bribes in the form of presidential bobbleheads, that's probably true. Great question, though, Neil. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. Liz is in Florida. Hello, Liz.
Hello, Frank. How are you doing?
Great.
Good. All right, here we go. You and Carmine are writing a children's book. Carmine is the artist. He will draw the pictures first. You are writing this book based on Carmine's illustrations. What will this book be about? How will this book look? What would the title be?
Pizza Spice! Pizza Spice! Pizza Spice!
I think the title might actually be called Pizza Slice, actually, because that seems to be what he's in the habit of saying a great deal. You know, all of his illustrations, whatever he draws, it looks like a Jackson Pollock artwork, right? But when I ask him what he's trying to draw, he always says it's cars or something or a shape. So I guess maybe it would be called Cars and Other Shapes. That would be the title of it. And then I don't really have much to work with in terms of these illustrations because it makes abstract art look precise the way that he draws. So I guess the story would be about a young man who imagines various squiggly lines and various shapes becoming cars. And I think that's probably what it would be about. Carmine's a very creative guy with respect to some things. With other things, not so much. For instance, he's got 3 stuffed animals that he's named each of them. He's named each of them Mooney. So I can imagine if there were characters in this book, we would have a tough time. Although I guess he's only just doing the illustrations. I would come up with some other stuff there. But yeah, I think it would be called Cars and Other Shapes, and it would be about squiggly lines and various other doodles somehow becoming cars. Thank you, Liz. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. Let me say hello to Igor in New Jersey, who always has an interesting question. Hello, Igor.
Hey there. Greetings, Frank.
Hi.
So my question to you is about President Trump's covering on his ear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're both, neither of us are doctors. We don't know the actual condition of his ear. And the question I'm asking is not making light of his injury by any means, right? But as a political show that the RNC is, and knowing how smart and how image conscious the campaign is and how smart he is in that regard. For example, like the picture he took when he was being booked or something like that. Very always thinking about the image. Are you a bit surprised that he went with a white bandage rather than something maybe was a little more discreet, like a skin-colored bandage, or maybe no bandage at all? What do you think? What kind of image does that project? And is that the kind of image you think was a good decision?
No, look, I think if everybody knows he was shot, right? So I think by Trump having a bandage like that, it's kind of reminding everyone of his heroism, honestly, and his physical courage in the fact that he was shot, where if it was something a little bit that was a little bit more obscure, or that blended in a bit more with his ear or whatever else, I don't know that it would necessarily convey the same message. And, as much as he is a showman and is very image conscious, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that's what his doctors put on him. And that's what they told him to wear. So I think he does want people to know that he was shot and doesn't want them to forget it. Obviously, everybody knows, but he doesn't want them to forget it. And that kind of serves as a reminder, Igor. I will say, though, on that front, I have been someone that I honestly never really thought that President Trump had a great deal of physical courage. I'm not talking about political courage or anything like that. But whatever you think about Donald Trump or his politics, I think for him, after he was shot, almost moments after he was shot, to stop the Secret Service, to have him put his shoes back on, and to the crowd, not knowing if there's another shooter or something out there, to pump his fist and shout, "Fight, fight, fight." It's a great image. It's a great presidential image, but even more so than being a great presidential image, it really did require a great deal of physical courage. Because think about it. If you're the president or a presidential candidate or a former president, and there are bullets and you're hit with one, that those bullets are meant for you. And in the chaos of the Secret Service tackling you and everything along those lines, I think there's a good chance that there might be multiple shooters looking for you. And yet he still stopped the Secret Service from scurrying him away into safety. And he still insisted on pumping his fist 3 times. I think you got to give the guy credit for that. Even if you're his biggest critic, I think you got to give him credit for that. I think it's a very admirable thing. 646-720-0635. Whatever you have questions about, now's the time. 646-720-0635. Hello there, Alex.
Hey, good morning, Frank. I want to ask you about something very different that I've been thinking about. I don't know if you ever thought about it. Have you ever thought about child labor, not slave labor, child labor, part-time, every day, children in elementary and high school working a few hours a day as being beneficial to society and educational, because, you know, if you work, that's really where you learn responsibility and other, real skills, and there's a motivation. Have you ever thought about that, and what are your thoughts on this?
Have I thought about child labor?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I worked as a young person. I think it's a great thing to have a part-time job as a teenager. But, you know, I don't think you want to get to a point where you have 8-year-olds crawling around in factories. I think a part-time job, once you're, say, 14, I think that can be a very good thing. I think younger than that, I don't know that I'm on board with that at this point. And I don't know that there's a need for that, either from a character building perspective for a child or from a labor shortage perspective. So that's my view. 646-720-0635, doing a little Ask Frank Anything. David is in the Boogie Down Bronx. Hi, David.
Yes, good morning, Frank. My question is based on some statements made by J.D. Vance, who's the vice presidential candidate. Now, he has apparently indicated several times that he thinks people getting divorced if the marriage is abusive, especially if there's children involved, is a terrible idea. Now, I know that you're a child of divorce. I don't know how old you were when your parents went their separate ways or what their situation was. But what do you personally think of children being in a situation where there might be verbal or physical abuse happening in front of them? Do you ever think they should be subjected to that? Or should the parents stay together, no matter how bad the situation is, for the alleged good benefit of the children?
Yeah. So I was about 5 when my parents got divorced. So no, I mean, I don't think any child should be subjected to abuse, physical or verbal, or even witness that kind of verbal abuse at all. I think a lot of times, while divorce is a terrible thing, a lot of times divorce can be preferable to staying in a home where maybe somebody has an issue with alcohol or addiction or something along those lines. And one of the issues Marilyn Wedge brought up in our discussion yesterday regarding childhood trauma, she didn't call it childhood trauma, but that's what I'm calling it, and the prevalence of ADHD later in life, is how quick people are to just throw medication at something rather than address the root cause of something. So I'm not familiar actually with what J.D. Vance said on the subject of divorce, and given what his own parents went through, and given the fact that he changed his own name to make sure that it wasn't his father's name anymore, I am a little surprised if that's the case. I don't dispute that your version of it is accurate. You know, I know you pay attention to this stuff, but I am surprised that that's what he's saying, and I certainly disagree with it. I think even if there's not necessarily abuse involved, sometimes you get divorced, you marry the wrong person, you're just at a point in your life where it doesn't work out for whatever reason. I think you should have the ability to marry someone else if all parties agree and have a better life. For instance, you know, in terms of my own parents, you know, both my parents are great people, but for whatever reason, they turned out not to be a good match with one another. And because of that, you know, my father married someone else, and they have 3 amazing children, my 3 younger siblings. And those 3 people would never have been born, and our family really wouldn't be complete had my parents not gotten divorced. So, no, I think there are a lot of cases where divorce is the appropriate choice for folks. So yeah, if that's what J.D. Vance believes, then I part company with him on that. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. Catherine is in the Boogie Down Bronx. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, Frank. Frank, in American history, have there ever been other presidential candidates like Donald Trump that ran and became elected and then lost and then tried again?
Yes. So obviously you had Theodore Roosevelt back in 1912. He didn't lose. He left office and then tried to run again, and didn't turn out so well for him. He finished his term, stepped aside, then tried to run again 4 years later and lost. But no, in terms of someone that lost re-election and then tried to come back and run, you had Martin Van Buren, who tried to do that. Yeah, he ran as a third-party candidate, and then you also had. I believe you had, I want to say Millard Fillmore did the same thing, but I know Van Buren did it. I'll have to double check if someone other than Van Buren and Theodore Roosevelt tried to run again after they left office. I know those two did it. And then, I'd have to give it some thought as to who else, but I know those two, Roosevelt and Martin Van Buren.
So it's been a long time since anybody's tried it.
Over 100 years.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. There was some talk of Jimmy Carter potentially trying to make a comeback in 1984, but that didn't really go anywhere. All right. We're going to continue with your questions in a moment. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 open lines. If you want to call in with a question, 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635, straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Hungry Like the Wolf. This is a birthday bumper music selection. It's, of course, Duran Duran, one of the great 80s songs of all time, by my friend Mike Zumbluskas. Mike Zumbluskas is one of my oldest friends. Over 23 years we go back. And I believe he's currently running for Congress. He's called into this show before just as a regular caller. I've interviewed him when he's run for office before. He's a wonderful guy. And if I lived in his district, I'd certainly vote for him. If he is, in fact, running. I'm not sure if he is actually running this year. But it certainly is his birthday. Of that, I am sure. All right. By the way, the caller called before. I omitted one person that fit the criteria that she talked about, which is somebody that ran for re-election as president, lost, and then came back. The one that I mentioned, obviously, is the most obvious. The one that I omitted was the most obvious, which is Grover Cleveland, who is the only president so far to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. He ran for re-election, lost re-election, and then came back, and then got reelected. So those are the two: Millard Fillmore and Martin Van Buren and Grover Cleveland, who lost and then ran for reelection. And Theodore Roosevelt, while he didn't lose reelection, he ended up running after he left the presidency for his old job. All right, 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. Bobby is on the Upper West Side. Hello, Bobby.
Hey, so I'm certain that Rachel is similar to my wife, where she gets in this cleaning thing, and it's almost like cross-eyed, like amazingly like vacuuming and throwing things away. I loved when you told about how you retrieved one of your presidential mugs that she threw out because the handle was broken. something like that, right? Was that similar? Right?
Yes. Again, there's been so many instances like that, but yes, that I believe was one.
Okay.
I lost you there, Bobby. Bobby, go ahead. You got cut off there for a second.
Am I with you?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. So I had a recording studio in our second bedroom, and on the recording console, I had a pegboard. And one day I came home from work. I work construction, and I had a recording studio. And she threw out these two paper. You remember the paper bus transfers when you got on way back?
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I had February 29th, 1988, and February 29th, 1992. And she threw them away just because she was blind, throwing things away, cleaning up. And I said, honey, they were like February 29th. They were leap year bus transfers. Oh, wow.
So Bobby, I believe me, I have a lot of empathy for you. But did you have a specific question exactly?
If your wife, Rachel, and my wife are similar when they get in the cleaning frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like yes, absolutely. I mean, when I left the house yesterday, my wife just gets in these manic cleaning modes. She's cleaning everything. She's cleaning, she's mopping, she's vacuuming, she's putting things away. And I don't even know what she's putting away. To me, the house looked clean. And yet I see her with this look of intensity on her face as she's cleaning room after room. And I'm thinking, what is she cleaning? And she's giving me a look almost, if I look in her direction, where she's almost got a clenched jaw that she's almost saying non-verbally that she's angry at me for not helping. But honestly, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know where's supposed to go where. The house looks clean to me. And if it's not clean, do we have to do this right now, right this second? Apparently we do. But that's that. So be it. Wouldn't trade it for anything. All right. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. If you have a question. All right. Let me say hello to Lisa in Brooklyn. Hello, Lisa. Lisa? All right, Lisa. Maybe if that's your real name. Thank you anyway. All right, 646-720-0635. Nick is in Farmingdale. Hey, Nick.
Hi, Frank. Now,
Hi.
I have not really experienced a national convention yet. I mean, I'm 18 years old, and the last time there was an election, it was COVID. There wasn't much going on. So I'm curious now. I really haven't heard anybody elaborate on this. And I mean, I could have Googled it, but I thought I'd go to you because why not? How do you get into a national convention? Is it like an invite? Do you pay for a ticket? Because, I mean, you see a lot of notable people there. You really don't see many average Joes there. Like, how would I go about going to a national convention?
Well, I mean, there's, I think you could either go as a delegate, in which case you would, be associated with one of the presidential candidates and hope that presidential candidate gets a couple of delegates, or you could go as a media personality. If you were a freelance journalist or a journalist that wrote for, a certain outlet or something, then you could go that way. Other than those two ways, I really don't know of any other ways. I'm sure if you were a big donor, you could go somehow if you were a donor to the RNC or even maybe or the DNC or your local Democratic or Republican Party. But the only two ways I know are to be a delegate, an alternate delegate, or to be a journalist. And if you're a journalist, then you reach out to the RNC or DNC credentialing committee and they'll find a spot for you. Simple as that. 646-720-0635. Nick's a great guy, by the way. Nick is the young man that he gifted me an old school transistor radio from the 60s or 70s. And then someone else had given me an old school radio that my son had dropped and it wasn't working. It needed repair. And I sent it to Nick and he repaired it for me and I offered to pay him. And he would only take, he only took the cost of the parts. Wouldn't take anything else. He's a wonderful guy, great guy. If everybody was like Nick, the world would be a better place. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. Jake is in Brooklyn. Hi, Jake.
Hi, Frank. Good morning.
Morning.
It was a great RNC convention. Looks like Trump has real potential for another term. But there's a question that haunts us all. At this point, the NSA, the CIA, the DOJ are all political activist organizations. That's what they've been reduced to. Do you think it's realistic that Trump can run an effective administration without cleaning out these places top to bottom? And is that possible?
It's such a good question, Jake, and it's one that I wrestle with a great deal. And honestly, what you just pointed to is my single biggest disappointment with the Trump administration for its first term, which is that the permanent government, whatever you want to call it, some people call it the deep state, some people call it the security state, some people call it just the permanent government. The permanent government has its own agenda. It has its own agenda at the State Department, in the national security agencies, including the agencies you referenced, certainly in the Pentagon, in every agency. And that was, I think, President Trump's biggest failure. And I'm going to answer this in sort of a long-winded way. So bear with me. I know who's the guy? Gino is always critiquing the answers. And if I give too long an answer, he takes issue with it. But sometimes an answer requires a longer answer. So I've been in the leadership of a political party several times, including in 2016 when my friend Curtis Sliwa and I engineered the takeover of the New York State Reform Party. Now, being involved in a minor party in New York State is about 0.0000001% as significant or impactful as being president of the United States. And yet, when you take over a political party, whatever the party is, Democrat, Republican, Reform in our case, there's so much to do. There's so much to do just in terms of knowing how to fill out the right paperwork, knowing where to send all the paperwork when it's filed, knowing how to recruit candidates, how to collect petitions. Just knowing what to do is incredibly challenging. Now, I knew what to do, but I couldn't do it in all 62 counties. I mean, I ended up doing it almost, and it was very difficult. It almost, I don't want to say it destroyed my relationship. It didn't, but it was, if I had a less patient girlfriend at the time, it would have. It was like a second full-time job. So what I ended up doing, and what other party leaders do, is you have to find other people that know how to do that stuff, right? How to recruit candidates, how to get petitions, how to file the paperwork, how to do everything else. There's 100 things. I'm just mentioning a few. And unfortunately, in my little world of minor party politics, the people that know how to do that is a very, very, very short list. So you end up getting those people that are A, willing to do it and know how to do it, and you put them in power. You make them county chairman of this. You put them on the executive committee. And what I've found, and this is an experience that I've now had in 3 different political parties, is those people all have their own agenda. And their agenda was not my agenda. Their agenda was not altruistic. Their agenda was not to grow the party or to create reform. Their agenda was to whatever. It was I'm not going to speculate, but it was not necessarily what I wanted to do. And going through that experience gave me a whole new appreciation for what any president has to go through that's relatively inexperienced, namely like a Trump or an Obama or a Bush to some extent. He didn't really apply because Cheney was there and he was very experienced. And I think Trump kind of went through that. Trump had an idea of what he wanted to do on a whole host of issues, and yet the people that know how to do those jobs, unfortunately, are people that have their own agenda that are not what Trump is going to do. So I know this may sound pessimistic, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but actually I don't think that it's likely that he can root out the political actors, I think you referred to them, or the permanent government that has its own agenda in these agencies. I would love to see it. I'd love to see any president do it, but I don't think so. I think the people that know how to do things, unfortunately, are people like John Bolton and Dick Cheney and Ron Klain. And these guys know how the levers of power in Washington work. They know how the chessboard operates, and they're able to manipulate whoever the other players are to get what they want at all times. So maybe he'll be able to move the needle a little bit, but I honestly, Jake, am not terribly optimistic. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635, doing Ask Frank Anything. If you have a question, now is the time to call in. Let me say hello to Roger in Maine. Hello, Roger.
Hey, Frank. Thanks for taking my call. So my question is, when Trump got shot the other night, this has happened before. A BBC employee got shot with a poison bullet from the Soviet Union. Could he have got shot with a poison bullet like the Soviet Union did to the BBC reporter?
Well, I mean, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not.
Well, I guess more reasonable is, do you think it's likely?
I don't know, honestly, Roger. I don't know enough about how the prevalence of poison bullets, but it's something I haven't thought about, honestly, Roger. I guess so. Do I think it's likely? Could he be a poison bullet? Why not? Right? I guess so. All right, 646-720-0635, doing an Ask Frank Anything, 1, 2, 3, 4 open lines. If you have a question, now is the time, 646-720-0635. And really, a lot of people are obviously, because we had the Republican convention, asking political questions or historical questions, and that's fine. But you can really ask a question about anything. These guys, when they're picking the best question, I've noticed they tend to reward offbeat, unusual, kind of quirky question. So if you have one, don't be afraid to ask. Charles is in the Queens. Hello, Charles.
Good morning. Hi.
Hi.
I'm really trying to understand why approximately a year ago, which was still 15, 16 months before the election, almost all the talk show hosts, including yourself, and almost all, and Republicans and Democrats, were talking definitively that it's going to be Biden. And I disagreed on two of the talk shows and said, no, I don't see how it's going to be Biden. I'm not saying that it made me smart, but I couldn't understand, I still don't, how everybody's talking is going to be Biden. In 2016, he was hiding in the basement. I don't have to have a medical degree to have seen and heard enough of who's screwing things up. And I'm thinking to myself, I honestly was thinking to myself, he's going to have a debate at least once against Trump of all people.
Right. So your question exactly is what, Robert? Is what, Charles?
I'm sorry.
So am I. But what's your question?
No, my question is my point isn't that I ended up being right, but why was everybody speaking so definitively it's going to be Biden?
Yeah.
He was going downhill, which was obvious.
Yeah. Charles, honestly, I don't remember saying that. I don't remember being convinced that Biden was going to be the nominee. I have said the same thing for a year, which is not only did I not think that Biden was going to be the nominee, I mean, maybe you can go back a year and find me saying something different, but I don't remember saying that. I have been saying that I didn't think Biden was going to run. I don't think Biden should have run. I don't understand why he wanted to run. And it has nothing to do with politics. I just, from his own personal life, I just don't understand why he would do this to himself. I mean, now he's going to be irreparably remembered. His legacy is irreparably damaged. Any good that he's done as president or as a senator or as vice president, it's gone. It's gone. He's going to be remembered as the Weekend at Bernie's president, everyone questioning who was really running the country. And I think the damage that this has done to his presidency and to his legacy is enormous. So I don't remember saying that, but I can only speculate as to why certain people say certain things. All right. We're going to continue with your questions in a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4 open lines, 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
44 minutes after the hour. This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. We're doing a little Ask Frank Anything. If you have a question, you can give us a call at 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. Margaret is in Westchester. Hello there, Margaret.
Hi, Frank. My question is, what is one of your most memorable things from Bob Newhart?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, I know everybody is probably going to be saying this today, but it's got to be the series finale of Newhart. Right, where basically they woke up and it was a dream. He woke up and it was a dream, and he was sitting next to the wife that he had from the Bob Newhart show. Right, so I think that has got to be, that's maybe the greatest TV finale of all time. And when it comes to Bob Newhart, who I may chat about a little bit later, that's got to be my most memorable moment, I would think. Margaret, a great question though, and obviously. Very sorry to have lost Bob Newhart. Incredible person. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. Let me say hello to Shay in Orange County. Hi, Shay.
Hey, how you doing today?
Hey, good, Shay. What's your question?
I just want to say, why would you run a reform thing if you could run Jews? Stop running reform.
Wait, if I could run Jews, you said? Is that what you said, Shay? Shay? All right. I think Shay is trying to sneak in an anti-Semitic question. Oh, I guess because there's Reformed Jews. I guess that was a joke. It fell way flat. And again, I'm not even talking about whether it was offensive or not. I just thought it was just not funny. So it was kind of lame. All right. 646-720-0635. Al is in New York City. Hey, Al.
Hey, good morning, Frank. I was diminished by that remark when I just heard it by 1 second.
Yeah, you and me both.
Listen, I want to ask you, in all your travels as the facts unravel, did you find this to be true? That some of your guests that you thought might be, hey, they're bringing the whole deal, the whole Megillah, and you were very disappointed? And conversely, were any of them that you weren't going to think was so good and turn out to be great?
Well, when you say guests, you mean guests on the radio?
Yes, on the radio. And if that's no good, then what's the best radio advice you ever got?
Huh. So, there have been a lot of interviews that I've been somewhat disappointed with. Normally, it falls into a category of someone that is either a very good writer, and I've read an article or a book that they've written, and then they just don't come across as well on radio as they do in the printed page. Or if there's someone that's been subject to a criminal experience and maybe just doesn't sound great, those have been disappointing. Honestly, many, more than I can count. And I don't want to necessarily embarrass anybody by mentioning any names. As far as somebody that pleasantly surprised me, let me think here. I think there's, I try to really expect the best out of everybody. And I know I'm not trying to evade your question, but I really do think that any interview has the potential to be a very good one. I'll tell you not recently, maybe 2 years. Who is not always great on radio? John Stossel. John Stossel is wonderful on television. He's wonderful in print. And unfortunately on radio, a lot of times when he does an interview, he sounds bored. He sounds like he doesn't want to be there. He sounds tired. And the last, I think, I'm not sure if we had Stossel on once or twice recently, but the last couple of times Stossel was on, I thought he was great. I thought he was interesting, engaging, and on the ball. And that was someone that I would characterize as a pleasant surprise, just because he has been so weak in a lot of radio interviews that I've heard him do with other people. So that's my answer. John Stossel. 646-720-0635. 646-720-0635. Rachel, my wife's namesake, is in New Jersey. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Frank. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So, yeah, no one asked you this yet, which I'm kind of surprised, but I wanted to know if you think that, like, with all the questions about the attempted assassination of President Trump, like, do you think it may have been an inside job, and who and why?
You know, I'm going to give a little kind of a longer answer here as well. I don't want, obviously, I hope that the answer is no. And I don't think it is an inside job. That's my answer. I don't think it was an inside job. However, the more we hear about this, the less it makes sense. The more that we hear about the heads up that the Secret Service had on this before it even, before the speech even started, and they still let him take the stage, it looks bad. The more that we hear, as Douglas McGregor pointed out yesterday, that the Pennsylvania State Police that have a lot of experience with this kind of thing weren't present at all. It doesn't look good. The more we hear that a local law enforcement officer retreated, the more that we hear that there was people spotting this and pointing to this shooter minutes before he actually shot the president. It looks bad. Now, I want to believe that this is just incompetence, and it's a sad thing to root for government incompetence, but that's where we are, because unfortunately the alternative is so much worse. But so my answer is, I don't think it was an inside job, and I hope it's not an inside job. However, I'll go down the rabbit hole of the rest of your question. If it was an inside job, look, if it was an inside job, you have a whole lot of people in this country that would prefer anyone other than Donald Trump to get elected, because any person that's likely to be elected other than Donald Trump, they're pretty much going to continue business as usual. It doesn't mean if it's Democratic or Republican administrations, they're pretty much going to do the same things that Bushes and Clintons and Obamas did. It's going to be more of the same, more wiretapping, more bombing random countries, more of just the same old thing. And I think Trump is really a threat to a lot of that. So I could see a lot of Wall Street interests, a lot of moneyed interests, and a lot of entities within the government not wanting Trump around. We had seen President Biden and his administration refuse to give Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Secret Service protection, even though there had been multiple threats and people trying to break in his home. And I could definitely see that kind of same mentality being present in maybe not providing adequate security protection to President Trump. But I can't believe that President Biden, even on his worst day, would want Donald Trump dead. I just don't. I just don't believe that he's capable of that. But if there is someone that wanted him gone, I think it's people that have a financial interest in keeping the system the way it is. I can't give you a specific name or specific names, but I think it's the continuation of the permanent government, basically. All right. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. Mike is in South Carolina. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
What's your question?
Are you there?
Mike? Yeah, Mike, what's your question?
Yeah. Did you know that we had an American Indian vice president for the United States?
I've heard this before. Remind me who this was.
Charles Curtis.
Yeah, Charles Curtis, who was also our last vice president with facial hair.
He had a mustache. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, he was. What kind of Indian heritage did he have?
I'm not sure. I know he grew up in a reservation in Kansas.
Yeah, that's right.
But
that was actually.
I asked the college. I'm sorry, Mike. Frank, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I was interrupting you. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, when I was in college, I asked my history professor, and he didn't know. I know it's a trivia thing, but still, I thought it was very interesting.
It is. And actually, I just looked this up. His nickname was Indian Charlie. And I guess that's the reason why. But I had forgotten that. I'll be honest, I don't think very much about Charles Curtis. And that's a shame, I guess, of people that become vice president but never make it to be president. That is what it is. Paul is in Massapequa. Hey there, Paul.
What's going on, Frank? How you doing? I'm more so looking for advice on the situation. If you feel like you have strong feelings for multiple people at one time and feel like kind of in your heart that it's not right to pursue all endeavors, but also that like you do have feelings and not sure what to do about it. So just your advice on the situation.
Well, just so I understand, Paul. So you're telling me you have romantic feelings with all three people?
Yes.
Okay. Do the three people all know about one another?
In ways, yeah.
In ways. Well, so what I would do, because I know, people, I've been in similar situations before. I know it's easier said than done, but what I would do is have a candid conversation with each of them and let each of them know that you think the world of them, that you enjoy spending time with them, that you feel very strongly about them, but that you're also very involved and have similar feelings for two other women or two other people, and see how they react to that. If all three of them say, no, you've got to just choose me or no one else, then I think you've got a decision to make, and I would hope that your gut would lead you into the right place. If all three, or at least two of the three, say, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't have an issue with you dating me and those other two women simultaneously, then you've won the lottery. That's like discovering plutonium by accident. So I think the first thing I would do, Paul, is talk to all three of them and have a candid conversation with all of them, because in my experience, if you get to the point where you're hiding things from people that you're spending time with, it starts the relationship off on a very poor note. And those scars stay with you for the rest of that relationship, however it goes. The last thing you want to be doing is lying, or not that you're lying, but omitting the truth from anybody. So I would talk to all three of them and let them know your situation. And hopefully you get a situation where at least two of them tell you that they're okay with you dating the other one. That's my honest advice. 646-720-0635, 646-720-0635. Marty is in Minneapolis. Hey, Marty.
Hey, Frank. I was just wondering, what are things that we cannot do in public that, illegally to do in public? And just a thought, like nudity, sex,
I see. Yeah. I think it varies in depending on the jurisdiction. I think indecent exposure is always one that you get in trouble for in most places. Littering, I think, is prohibited just about everywhere. Vandalism's prohibited in most places.
I never thought of littering.
Well, no, that's true. I only thought it because my son and I rode the train yesterday, and there's big signs that say no littering. Depending on where you are, carrying weapons is something that could get you in trouble.
Well, can't you carry weapons in Texas?
I said depending on where you are. True. And I think again, depending on where you are, public intoxication can get you in some trouble as well. But vandalism and you know what, panhandling can get you in some trouble in a lot of different places as well. Thanks, Marty. 646-720-0635. Let me say hello to Brandon in New Jersey. Hi, Brandon.
All right, Frank. So you're trying to get your social media account, your memberships, views up. You plan a flash mob. Now, I know you don't, really sing or dance, but, the rules are open. What do you do if you're going to organize and participate in one?
Brendan, honestly, I don't think I know what a flash mob is. I know I've heard the term, but I don't even know what one is. So I'd have to, I guess, find out what one is before we did it. I don't know. I'd have to give that some thought, Brandon. But honestly, I wish I had a better answer. But I know it's a bunch of people showing up for something. But I don't know beyond that. Best question.
Liz in Florida, Carmine book.
Liz in Florida, call back. The rest of you, keep asking questions.